Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's Wednesday walkabout. And I think the title for this one is going to be what has most surprised me about this cottage garden. And I think for me, it's that everything has matured so much faster than I anticipated and grown so much better than I anticipated. And if you're new to this channel, a Wednesday walkabout is when I just walk about, literally, the front and back gardens, and I describe what's going on, what's going to happen, and any changes I might think about in the future, with plenty of tips along the way that might be instructive for you. So first of all, I think one of the most dramatic things is the before and after of these back stairs. Now, definitely it would be a lot more beautiful if we were in softer light, but we're unfortunately having to shoot this midday. But Stuart, right here, let's put the before picture of what this looked like when there were just those really pitiful steep steps that came down from the great room into the backyard, and now I have these beautiful cascading steps. So the backyard right now, well, I think Stuart put it pretty well. And it was that the ajuga doesn't know when to stop. I had no idea that putting in tufts of ajuga in between the flagstones and along different areas that I wanted to soften would take off so beautifully. I mean, it has really been very prolific. And while I can't do it right now, I am definitely going to take advantage of how much it has grown by separating it this fall and sharing a lot more of it with the side yard along the east side, the garden path, that will then extend the look all the way down seamlessly from the front yard to the backyard. And I will have more than enough of it to do that without spending a dime.
Yeah.
Without spending a dime. But too hot to do that now. Yesterday was the highest recorded global temperature ever. And we are setting one record after another. Now, that said, in Oklahoma, it's actually been fairly nice, but that other shoe is about to drop. And I think in about 4 or 5 days, we've got a stream of upper 90s and low 100s. So stuff looks pretty good right now, if I do say so myself. But I imagine some of these things are going to go a little bit south when that heat hits. But we are at the end of July after all. So a couple of changes that I've made recently, and that is, again, because I was so surprised at how quickly shrubs and things grew, in addition to the ajuga, that originally I probably overplanted the front yard. So I am just moving things around. For example, one of the things that I took out were those encore azaleas, the Coral Beauty encore azaleas. Those are going to be gifted to Stuart's mom, who has a lot more space in which they can really do their thing and beautify her landscape. And so I took some of those out so this area doesn't look so congested. I'm really being mindful of the fact that when things are not in bloom this winter, I really need to have good evergreen structure. So I'm even being more mindful of that and moving some of my evergreens around. One thing that has also so pleasantly surprised me, you guys, is I just kind of stuck it in, not knowing if it would work well or not. But I really wanted the perimeter of this back brick patio to be surrounded with red verbena that would cascade over the side.
Say it worked.
And it definitely is working, with lots of frequent deadheading and pinching, but it will only continue. It can really handle the heat, and it will only continue to look better into fall, where I think it will also enhance what I plan on having going here in the way of fall color. You know, a lot of other things are starting to just now show up. The dahlias that I had back here, some of my tomatoes were really late in getting started. planted some zinnias back here in those hot colors. Hopefully the hot colors that I think I planted will materialize. I'm having to do some zhuzhing. I'm still learning. I think my biggest learning curve back here has been these raised beds, because I'm still learning about the way light travels through the backyard. And because of that, I'll know how to plant more effectively next year. But right now I am more than enjoying the fragrance of just being able to snip on my boxwood basil. And some of you have been showing me pictures of your own. So that is my question of the day. If you guys are growing boxwood basil, then please send me a picture of it. It too benefits from really frequent pruning, and I probably would be saving all of these little clippings here, but I know I have a refrigerator full of Genovese basil inside from my friend Jen that I will be magically transforming into pesto later today. So the other thing that I'm doing here is I've never really been satisfied with the way my plant theaters have looked, and I'm still not. So I just keep playing with that, and to me that is happy play. Once I get my formula down, then things will stay more consistent. But also these areas I'm kind of playing with light. Never really sure how the light is going to hit. And so because of that, that's kind of different. And these are those little boxwood topiaries that I started. Stuart, if we can find it, let's put a link to when these guys first started. But I said by the end of the summer that I felt fairly certain that they would have pretty good form, pretty good topiary form, and indeed they definitely are starting to get it. So I will just keep clipping on those. Clipping, as you can imagine, was pretty much non-existent while I was in Scotland. So I'm trying to catch up on that. One risk that I took, because it was driving me crazy, was that I relocated a lot of the little coconut butterfly candy buddleia from more in the foreground to the background, because it was feeling a little claustrophobic around here. So I had a couple that were planted up closer to the patio, and I decided to move them back here, and then I cut them back real hard so as not to stress them. This is typically something that I would have waited till fall to do, but because we had this break in the weather and we got some good rain, I went ahead and did it. I moved two of them back here, and lest you think that my risk taking was not worth it, look at all of the new green growth coming out.
I talk like you know, I say stuff like that.
Yeah, so
Lest you think.
yeah, lest you think, I know, people say, oh, Linda, don't sound so affected. I'm sorry, but that is really how I talk.
It is, I can affirm it.
Yes,
awesome.
That is how I talk. So these were moved to the background, so the area in the foreground will be, it will just feel a little bit more open and airy. Likewise, this fall, I'll probably move this colonnade holly soft touch holly to the back, and just make this area seem a little bit more open. And by relocating lots of ajuga and relocating some of my shrubs, both for aesthetic and practical reasons, I think that will help. For example, I had some shrubs in here. I had some better boxwood in here, and I've got these pancake arborvitaes, and I moved the better boxwood and put some more flagstone in here, and probably at least this one, maybe not that one, but at least this one will also get relocated this fall when it's cooler. Why? Because it's a hose catcher. And Stuart, when I'm out here watering, he has to have my back, and he has to kind of adjust the hose so it doesn't get caught on the pancake arborvitae, which have twice today, have just done really, really well. All of my watering and everything got done very, very late. But overall, I'm pleased. There's always tweaking to be done. The tweaking never stops It is the tweaking that is probably the most fun thing, particularly as the seasons change. I am thrilled with the way the boxwood are growing. You can see all that new growth on the better boxwood, and pretty soon, right now, what has bothered me about this corner is that there isn't enough visual weight. And I need more visual weight here, and I'm trying to be patient in how I want that to materialize. Partly because I could wait for these to grow big. I could get one great big evergreen and put it in here. But I'm still kind of thinking about that. Again, partly because I am watching the way the sun moves. And once I have a really good idea after living here for, well, this garden will be not quite a year and a half old. Let's give it a year. I'll have an idea of where I think things will really do their best. But all in all, Stuart, if you wouldn't mind just doing a nice sweep of the entire backyard as it looks right now. And that ain't too shabby compared to what it did look like. And interestingly, a lot of you have said that you love the front yard, but it's the backyard that really makes your heart sing. And I find that very, very interesting. So I'd love to know your reasons why, if you want to include your rationale in the comments below. So let's take a break here and let's move to the front. This is our next to the last walkabout before I go on my 6-week sabbatical. And I'll probably be doing little updates along the way in the community tab, in shorts, things like that on Instagram. But this will be really the next to last big update that we do before I take my sabbatical. So there you go. Let's take a break here and we'll move to the front. So the ever so happy, and by the way, I believe this is Bronze Beauty ajuga. There's a little bit of variegated ajuga that's tossed in there also. But it has done so exceptionally well that what I want to do now is I want to continue this expanse, very much a lesson that was reiterated to me in Scotland. I want to take that purple border along the flagstone and I want to continue it down this way in this section right here. And that way it'll be one long continuous line of that beautiful boxwood that comes here and into the back. For those of you who are ever so concerned about whether or not these flagstones are foot sure, to me they're very foot sure. Now, will that change over time as I age? Probably, but so many things will change over time. And right now, I just love the way it looks, and it is very functional. And of course, the ajuga, if it starts growing out of bounds, I can just clip it back or divide it. So I think that will be beautiful. And then these Oakland hollies, they will, in short order, really start putting on accelerated growth, and then I'll have some visual weight right there that will kind of stop. And then probably the other thing that I'm going to want to do is do something to make this gate just a little bit more attractive. I don't know that I will paint it red like the ones in Scotland, but I'm definitely going to be doing something to make it a little bit more charming, because I do think when you look through here, I think this image and the transparency of the lattice work, which is one of my favorite things about lattice, is it gives you a glimpse of what's back there, but nevertheless, it still feels private. So the other thing that I am going to address now that I am back in town, and by the way, if you wonder if I ever sit here, yes, I do, because this is in deep shade in the afternoon, and I can sit here and I can watch the kids go by on their way back from school, or just, you know, strollers go by or whatever. And yes, I actually do sit in it quite a bit, surprisingly to me, more than I thought I would. I definitely need to prune on this Chinese snowball viburnum.
He's going to be happy next year.
Oh yes, very, very happy, and I need to do that. Maybe not as happy as,
Look at these guys.
as these
Come
moon
on.
dance hydrangeas.
It's
Right
crazy.
now, if there's anything that people comment on as they drive by, it is definitely this, and I think accentuated by the fact that it's all of this white in front of this dark green. I've talked about that ad nauseum to you guys, but it changes so much that I wanted to point it out again. So pretty soon, those Oakland hollies that I have down there that look like babies now, they will, in short order, they will be as large as these and put on girth like these. And then what I think I will do when I talk to the awning man, do you know the awning man?
I don't know.
That lives on
Awning
Muffin
Lane?
Lane, Awning Lane. I will probably put an awning here, one over the back door, maybe one over the step-down door that goes into the garage. I'm not sure. A lot of it will depend on what that cost is and the expense. Tragedy has hit the pumpkin patch. So I came out here this morning.
I see one good. Oh, no, that happens. It happens.
I know, and I tried to take measures to prevent it, but in my absence, I think it got away
But
with
boy,
me.
hold on a second. Look how big this has grown.
Yeah, look how much it has grown.
Is that coming off the main one right there?
It's coming off. Well,
Holy smokes.
I don't know how many really went to seed there. I do know there's two different kinds. So in here is
got one
my
down
other
there.
one. Where is it? It's
Down here on
always
the
hard
bottom.
to see. Oh yeah, right there. And it's really hanging in
It's
there.
yellow,
And then
too.
look, there's another one there.
Yeah.
That's a different kind.
Oh, that's a gourd over there, huh?
Yeah, that's a gourd.
I didn't show them
And
the gourd
there's
yet.
another. Oh, you were looking at the
I was
pumpkin.
looking at the pumpkin. I didn't
Yeah,
see the
I was
gourd.
calling them all the generic name. And I know you guys, you probably think, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's making such a much about this.
It's
But
neat.
it delights me every
Yeah.
single day. And yesterday, there were some kids that were walking down the street with their mom and dad, 3 little girls, and they were headed someplace for dinner, and they said, on the way back, can we do a pumpkin check? And I said, absolutely.
Wait, just like
Yeah.
followers?
Oh yeah,
That's-
they're just the little
that's
girls
awesome.
that live in the
That's so cool.
neighborhood that came. Yeah, no, they live down the street and they like to come by for periodic pumpkin checks. And I do have more pumpkins. I think that's a female. I'm not sure, but there are a few more. Even if I get none at all, it gives me something to get up in the morning for. Every morning I like coming out here and checking on the pumpkins. Okay, let's take a little break here because I need to take a big old drink of iced tea, and then we'll kind of get a glimpse of what's going on in the front yard, which, as I said, right now doesn't look too shabby. Well, as Stuart said, the pink is insane. And you may recall that I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I cut this back dramatically. I cut it back, I think, by 2/3. And I said, oh, let's just kind of wait and see how long it takes for this to come out in its full glory. And I would say it's almost there. And it's actually been doing this for about 5 days now. So with some feed, with pruning that then encourages new growth. It looks fresh. It looks beautiful.
Right by each other. It looks so
What do
good.
you see?
The white and the pink. And all
Oh,
those
the white and the
colors
pink.
right
Yeah,
by
that's the lantana that's
That's
just
awesome.
starting to come out. And then here's another little tip that I've shared with you before, but again, if you're new to the channel, I've had this topiary for years, and in one of our ice storms, a huge branch fell down on it, and on the back side of which, that was that.
You can kind of see, yeah.
It basically just really amputated this backside. And so whenever I go out of town, if I've got any potted plants like this, where the ugly side has been to the back and the pretty side has been to the front, I rotate them. So while I'm gone, the ugly side is to the front. And that way this gets more light and it will tend to grow out more symmetrically. And then if I wanted to, this is not a real concrete pot, it's light, and I can keep torquing it so that now the pretty side is once again in front, Sadly, that puts the pretty flowers in the back, but it will give this stuff in front an opportunity to grow in. So right there, I think that's a squash bug that was in there. But that's a good tip. Let your uglies take care of themselves while you are not home.
Absolutely.
Yes, while you are not home. And now I've got to grab my scissors, because another tip is you never walk your garden, or try not to, without a pair of scissors to do some in-the-moment deadheading, which right now for me has been such a joy, partly because the temperatures have cooled down, and I find that I'm really enjoying coming out here in the evening after dinner and doing lots of deadheading. It's cool. There's so many people out walking their dogs, and I find it very meditative, especially on the butterfly candy, because they are blooming their heads off, but then the flowers need to be deadheaded once they are past their prime.
This guy.
And then there's this guy. Stuart said, whoa.
I mean, he's like seemingly, I mean, I don't know about twice as big, but almost twice
Almost
as big.
twice
as
as
last time I saw
big.
him.
So this is a Eugenie topiary that I have had for, I want to say, 5 or 6 years now, maybe longer, that I put in the greenhouse, and it comes out looking kind of like holy heck after being in the greenhouse. It's all overgrown, and I just give it a good shear and a good feed. And you can see right here that this one, its backside kind of isn't as pretty as the front side, and that's one that I should have torqued while I was gone, because that pot is just, and it's a lightweight pot, is just set inside there. Now this year I might really have to get active, and I may have to repot these maybe into pots that are slightly bigger with new soil, since it's probably consumed most of the nutrients in the soil, and I probably want to kind of take care of that. Somebody in one of the comments, I found it interesting, they said, Linda, you have so many annuals. I really don't have that many annuals. I have annuals in containers and a few along the walkways, some of which I overwintered from last year, but pretty much all of the color you see back in there, except for the zinnias that went to seed themselves, so I don't even really consider them as annuals. All of that back there is perennial color, perennial and foliage color, that just comes back whether I do anything or not. And last year I loved the Cleome, and this year I'm not loving it quite as much, maybe because it's blooming a little bit later, and I don't know, I'm just not loving it as much, so it may or may not make a reappearance next year. But boy, look at the Sunshine Ligustrum.
Always has an appearance.
Loving my balls of basil that I talk about ad
And we did see a
nauseum.
lot of this in Scotland too, right?
Yes, we did see a lot of it in Scotland, and I'm seeing a lot of it in the neighborhood, and I'm going to start taking some pictures of from the sidewalk of gardens in my neighborhood. Another thing that has performed beyond my expectations is this third Eugenia. It used to live over there last year, and I moved it over here for some height. I actually think I liked it better over there. So when it comes out of the greenhouse next year, it may revert to its original setting, but look at how beautiful all of the sedums are growing at the base. And if you want, and this is the perfect light for it because it gets a little bit of shade. Even sedums don't want full-on blasted, 12 hours of complete sunshine when the temperatures are really exceptionally high. And this seems to be getting just the right amount. And look at that gorgeous purple color. And one of you told me, I did not know the name of the cultivar. One of you mentioned what you thought it was. And of course I've forgotten. So please mention it again. The dahlias are coming into bloom. If you'll just do just a little brief look at all of the activity, literally buzzing around the zinnias. And so a lot of pink has entered the picture of blue and white, blue, white, and yellow, which I told you is kind of my favorite color palette. The white wedding hydrangeas, they're starting on this end. You can see that they're much happier than they are in the middle, And that's because the middle gets absolutely no shade. But I bet you by next year, and certainly the year after that, I can't believe how well these red buds are growing. Yeah, where are you? The red buds are growing so well. And so I should get plenty of shade in this area probably in a year. And in the meantime,
Boy, these look good though, Linda.
I can just cut back.
Just looks so good.
Yeah, aren't they gorgeous? They really are gorgeous. So next year I anticipate these will look every bit as beautiful as the moon dance, because they'll get approximately the same amount of shade. Something else so surprising to me is the encore azaleas, that they have really bloomed, because they didn't bloom this spring because of a late hard freeze. And I need to go through and kind of pick off some of the blossoms that have dried. But nevertheless, and we'll show you this at the very end, what I'm going for now is I want it to look good up close, but I want it to look spectacular from a distance. And I think it is looking spectacular from a distance. And that's kind of what I'm going for, because that's how most people see my garden. That's how most people enjoy my garden. Something else that has worked phenomenally well, come over here. Look at how much these seedlings, I know how much these foxglove seedlings have grown, and I have two other pots of them.
She was happy about that.
Yeah, in the back, and these have done so well. I'll be sharing a lot of these with some of my buddies. And by the way, there is this.
Peppers?
Yeah, no, that's all basil.
Oh.
And actually, I need to use some of that basil. I need to cut it back. I transplanted a lot of the boxwood basil that had germinated in there to other areas. Here is an answer to a question. A lot of you asked me, am I still using my reel mower, my push reel mower? And yes, but I tell you what I have run into. I need to set the height on it at a higher level, because right now my turf has recovered so well since we moved in. Kayla's been taking such good care of it that it's so thick. It's hard for me to get this through it at its lower level. So I am going to maybe have Kayla raise it for me, and also sharpen the blades. Now Stuart is knocking off all sorts.
What am I doing?
No.
Oh.
Oh yeah, no. I said you are knocking off all sorts of bugs.
Oh, yeah,
and I did some research on these guys, and here's some right here. And this one doesn't have the characteristic red shoulders yet, but these are
bugs, aren't those
these are red shoulder bugs, I believe. And what they do, they really don't harm anything, but they feed on seeds, tree seeds.
Oh.
And obviously they are feeding on the seeds from this soapberry tree over here. And so I try to, I'm not really doing anything to address them other than just watching them and talking to them and begging them not to go into my house, because they are a little bit of a nuisance. But that's as much as they do. They're just kind of a nuisance. And you know what? If they decompose those seed heads and break them down, then that's all good and fine. That's all good and fine with me.
Take a second, enjoy the shade.
Oh yeah, enjoy the shade.
It's amazing.
And I mean, look at how grand these roses, these It's a Breeze roses look now.
Looks amazing.
Now that they are free from Japanese beetles, and look at the happy bees and things.
Oh, yeah.
And right now,
Wow, the bubbly is crazy.
I'm full of questions today. Here's another question. At this point in the season, do you keep deadheading your roses for more bloom, or do you wait to see if they're going to put out really interesting and beautiful rose hips for fall? And I'm thinking about these for these roses, but it's mostly for the apple blossom roses that are down at the bottom. So this is what I mean when I say what's really important to me. And in fact, Stuart, let's walk all the way over here, because this is my favorite view of the cottage, is looking at it from an angle as you come down the street, and this is kind of what you see. And so for me, this is the money shot. This is where even from a distance, I always want it to look its best. And I think it looks kind of almost impressionistic, kind of pixelated, because there's not solid blocks of color, but there are dots of color everywhere in kind of a tight color palette. And so I think it looks good. And you can see here, I'll show you exactly what I mean. Yesterday I got out my push reel mower because I wanted to take just a little bit off the top because they're coming and doing the big mowing tomorrow. Yeah, and you can see how I mowed it here, but it was just too thick for me to get through. And so I stopped, I just did the edge, and the rest of it will look all nice and pretty tomorrow. Lantana, probably my favorite go-to annual for summer heat because it does great. And what I'm starting to do now is pay attention to which colors do best in the heat. So I have found that the white and the yellow and the darker colors tend to do a little bit better than the paler colors, maybe because the contrast isn't as great. So just a little side note. I have some more mulching to do along this berm, but you can see how the yarrow that I cut back, look here, it's happy. It is putting out another round of bloom. Look at the orange rocket. I mean, look at how glorious that looks. With the abelia, I've showed you guys this before, but it bears repeating. Stick to your message, and right now my message is that this kaleidoscope abelia, that orange rocket, Barberry, the sunshine ligustrum, the obsession andina, and whatever this sedum is, they all look brilliant together. So much so that I took some cuttings from my 2 mounds of that, and I created another mound here just by sticking it in the dirt. Because you may recall that right here, or maybe right there, was where I had that lamb's ear that I decided to take out. But I mean, just look. And this is why this is called Autumn's Edge, because the colors are just spectacular going into fall. You can see the purple hovering over there, the blue haze that hovers over. And then it's these apple blossom roses that are doing so much better here. You may recall that I transplanted it from the front berms to the side so they'll cascade over the brick wall, and indeed they are. And they bloomed great, but now this is my decision point. Do I go ahead and deadhead them again, or look here, do I see if they produce beautiful hips? Can you see those nodules right there? If they produce beautiful hips. So tell me what you do. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm just kind of curious as to what you do. And then all the better boxwood is doing great. I anticipate that this fall I will also be thinning out some of the shrubs in this area, namely that blue point juniper that started out as just a baby that I took from the other garden. Stuart, do you remember it? Yeah. And look at how much it's grown. And it's really obstructing the beauty of the ligustrum behind it. And it just doesn't, it's just kind of meh there. So I think I'm gonna move that this fall. I'm making a list in my garden journal. At the end of September, that's where I'm listing all of these things I want to do. Not in today's entry, but in fall's entry. So I can go back on that day and look to see what's on my to-do list. And then down here you can see why people think that this is just so beautiful here.
Yeah, I'll give them the walk by.
Yeah, give them a little walk by. Ignore the trash can. It's always trash day.
Wait till this guy's white too.
Yeah, and can you imagine what this is going to look like next year when this is in full-blown white?
I can imagine it.
And I just, by the way, I just talked to Color Blends today to place my order, and some of them are already selling out. So if you haven't gone to colorblends.com, please go and
We
place
preach
your
this so much
order. I
every
preach
year.
it so much. And this year, apparently, also, all bulb companies are struggling with this. There were some growing difficulties in some
Oh, man.
areas.
So shortages, is that what that means?
And I don't, well, shortages of specific varieties.
Okay.
And so because of that, some of our more popular ones like French Rose and things may be in short supply. Maybe not, but at this point they're being pretty conservative about their offerings. So there you go. There is my Wednesday walkabout about things about the cottage garden that have surprised me the most. First of all, that things lived. and I would say probably close to 90% of stuff lived. I expected to have a much higher mortality rate. So stuff really did well, and it not only survived, but it has thrived, it has grown, and because of that, I need to kind of, move some things around. I've been surprised at some of the ideas that I had that actually came to fruition. I've had surprises like my pumpkin that just was the ultimate surprise, and I have been surprised by just how many people seem to enjoy it as they walk by, and I take that as a true privilege. Lots of visitors last week. We had some from Delaware, we had some from Texas, we had some from Virginia. It just always amazes me. So I hope you enjoyed this walkabout with me. Stay tuned to next week, and we'll have a little bit more new content till I go on sabbatical, and then once I do, it's going to be up to Stuart and Leah to come up with some playlists and things for you guys. Take care. Happy Wednesday.